Greetings. Really happy to contribute to this session and to be with you at this time. So let's just take a few slowing and deepening breaths, just to feel this miracle of each breath, this gift that sustains our life. As we breathe in and feel the breath energy, filling our body down through the lungs and the torso, down through the pelvic area and the legs, and also suffusing through the inhalation through the shoulders and throat and face and into the brain, through the whole body. So on an in-breath, this subtle suffusion of life-giving energy that the breath carries through the whole body. And then on the exhalation, a softening of wherever we're holding tightness, tensions, somatic patternings at deep levels in our body where we hold. So in this mindfulness practice, we're holding attention to our felt sense, somatic experience, the energetic experience of the body, the sensations of the body, welcoming and opening to what's felt, and breathing through with this in-breath, breathing through, taking the breath through, feeling tones, particularly those that are turbulent. We have a lot of turbulent feeling these days in response to what's happening. So soothing, calming, steadying, grounding on the inhalations and on the exhalations, releasing, arriving, starting afresh as we join and come together in this quality of timeless presence within which all exists, all lives, all has residence inwardly and externally in this timeless presence, aware knowing of the heart. And what's important is that we ground ourselves in our individual practice with this body, mind, heart, with our process, applying these at the activity of the path. And as we do that, the fruits of that activity of the path will come into ripening in and of their own accord, supporting our well-being, supporting our deepening of inquiry, supporting the application of our understanding within the world, within the manifested realm. Within the world now, we face a multiple of crises, and of course, all within this overarching, enormous catastrophe that we're in the heart of, all rooted within the primacy of our lack of wise relationship with ourselves, with each other, and within the world. We need to engage at the systems levels and how those systems actually live within us. So it's both, again, individual and collective. And as we go through the session, I'd like to invite that we continue to take deeper breaths, feeling the ground beneath us and landing in our presence. And that presence is an embodied presence. So going to the IPCC report said absolutely definitively that this paper, this report, is nothing less than a code red for humanity. The alarm bells are deafening and the evidence is irrefutable. So this is not news to us, but what's really important is this report signals a state shift in our understanding, as it's calling for immediate action. Obviously, it seems that there are tipping points already in place that we're all experiencing around us. Here in California, we're in the midst of the fire zones that have become infernos. And it's not only the impact of knowing that one of those fires could come rolling in at any time, but also the role, the hidden effects of that, the drought, the loss of species in the drought. The other day, I was part of an activist group that were taking water, literally 300 gallons of water by hand, walking 3 miles into public property lands in Point Reyes in Marin County to bring water to the elk, which are indigenous to this area, but that are dying from drought, which the local agricultural beef and cattle industry are using those lands for. So those elk are not only diminishing under drought and being fenced in and unable to access water, but also are being culled, whereas at the same time, exponentially, land, 40% of land across the world is used for industrialized animal agriculture. Massive amounts of water, massive loss and degradation and erosion of biodiversity, acidic oceans, and the primary issue of the massive levels of violence and abuse inflicted on billions of animals and people working in those industries. So there's just these connecting the dots from a local area and the drought and an industry, drought helping to turn what were more manageable fires into great infernos, racing through towns, burning them up, killing people, destroying property, killing millions again of beings, tiny little beings living in the earth, many, many creatures that can't evade. So this fire, this heat, this drought, this hot world that we're in. So this sort of tightening feeling of what was sustainable and manageable as a living system is getting more and more constricted. From another UN report taken in January this year, that 2/3 of people worldwide think climate change is a global emergency. This report also states that the voice of the people is clear. They want action on climate change. This represents most of humanity. 2/3, probably the other third, if they're not consciously in denial as a political strategy or an economic strategy, they will maybe be feeling this unconsciously. They'll be feeling the pressure. So everyone is feeling this intensity. So 2/3 think that climate change is a global emergency. And the voice of the people is clear, as the report says, they want action on climate change. And if we consider that not so long ago, even a few years ago, there was a sort of relegation of that awareness to the fringes. And there still is an absolutely vitriolic right-wing press that is completely dedicated to climate denialism and demonizing any activist movement that is demonstrating on the streets or trying to awaken awareness. So even if there's 2/3 of people, a groundswell of alarmed citizens, which represents a significant global awakening, most people are not still mobilized. And if they are aware, they're feeling defeated by a media run by a few global media barons, by a small percentage of people that buy out the political world and that still control what happens on this planet, even driving the extinction of the planet and all life on it. So there's this really interesting and horrible moment where this is happening, but it also at the same time, there's more and more awareness. It's the structures of the systems which have been hidden in these sort of double speak, the American dream, or the endless growth of a system, that the economy of extraction and dominance as our right to hold superiority over other beings. All of that trance-like speak that keeps us in a spell is being broken by the actual events on the ground, by the increasing alongside of the climate emergency, the growing oligarchic control, like 8 people, this is actually about 5 years ago, owning as much as half of the world's resources. I mean, and it's all paper money, it's all numbers, it's not real, it doesn't really translate, but it's power to control, massive control. So people are up against, even if there is this awareness, we are all up against these systems that some of them are digging in deeper. This ideal of nationalism, this ideal of getting back to some perfect place that doesn't exist. So alongside this great collapse, we have systems that are becoming more extreme, more cannibalistic, if you like, of societies, less humane, hard to manage and to build resilience as we're in this collapsing dinosaur that, is being inflated and kept afloat by increasingly sociopathic and psychotic, meaning a break from reality, unable to really deal with the reality that actually, and alongside of that, more political and religious extremism is attracting people, sort of cultism. All of this is really symptomatic, I think, of really not being able to understand the absolute dire consequence of where we actually are and mobilize ourselves to respond effectively en masse. So the issue really is, as is pointed out by Greta, is what will it take for people in power to act? This is a question, what will it take? And she says, well, it will take many things, but above all, it will take massive pressure from media and massive pressure from the public. So everyone now, really, all of us are part of having to both digest somatically the enormity of this situation, which means we go through a period of, for me, several decades of just, learning to navigate energetically a whole range of very uncomfortable emotions and energetic felt sensations and feeling tones in the body, which will also trigger a lot into some of our own early trauma patternings and epigenetic patternings, historical patternings, evoking very deep places in our psyches. There's these that live beneath the surface. I think we could say that we're living in a difficult time. It's an apocalyptic time in the true sense of the word. The removing of veils. All the shadows are now unrelentingly spotlighted. There really are few places left to hide. And for some of us, it feels like our psychic boundaries are eroding under the force of an overwhelming, what's often felt as toxic influx from this collapsing world. And it's sort of swirling into a gathering force, like the weather that's flooding and burning as it rushes through our nervous systems. this psychic and emotional weather, as well as the actual weather. And within that, there is another card player, if you like, not just humans. There is Mother Nature, Pachamama, the deep spirit of Mother Nature herself, who is also just regulating her system. So it's breaking free with these more and more extreme weather patterns, bringing forth Mother Nature is an intelligence. This not we feel we control the whole game, but she is really so much more powerful, and her wildness is erupting, flooding, burning, freezing, melting. So this is no wonder we feel crazed. We can feel the tectonic plates of our world spin beneath us, what we thought was real and solid. But it's also possible that rather than just falling apart, there's this feeling of things falling apart, that maybe there's an opportunity towards a core recalibration. It's like a shamanic journey. It's like we're in a shamanic journey where we're in a sort of dismemberment, the ego, or a meditative, deep meditative journey, which is another way of talking about a shamanic journey. An awakening journey is when there's a deep dismemberment of the frames that we've lived within, the structures and the clear worldview that we've had, like the ego structure. It's just a structure. It's a part of the changing world. It's not actually reality. It's a construct. And it's very terrifying when the constructs we've lived within and that we've held as realities start to break up. This is why I've been appreciating, for example, this book, which is called Deep Adaptation, Navigating the Realities of Climate Chaos. From this book, let me just read you a piece about this time that we're in. We're looking for solutions, we're looking for maps, we're looking for somewhere to land, as actually we're in free fall and the tectonic plates are moving, and it's terrifying, it's overwhelming, we feel it in our body, it's intense, it's like a nightmare. It's when will it shift and we'll wake up? When will there be cohesion? In fact, it feels like it's getting worse. And this is actually the path we're on. On one level, it will get worse. On another level, there is this opportunity. So from the book, it says, rather than offering a map, deep adaptation is more an invitation into a maplessness, where all the landmarks that we've previously relied on are found to be a mirage. Those landmarks include assumptions of progress and the superiority of humankind. Instead of scientific certainty, little seems certain anymore. And I'd probably put tech certainty, really looking at this, the high priests of our culture, the billionaire oligarchs and their tech companies and their AI companies. So these are the things we think will give us the direction that we need. But in fact, little seems certain. And in fact, they seem to still be, rather than opening a way into wisdom and depth, it feels more like extracting and manipulating and control to just enhance their own personal power and wealth and control. So it's a lot. So nothing seems certain anymore. The triumph of scientific imperialist discourse over all other ways of knowing and being has begun to lose its power in orientating people in their world. The trend towards ever-greater mapping and detailed measuring of our infinitely complex and changing world reflects the aim of attaining a sense of safety from the mysterious. And I really appreciate this naming of the fundamental mysterious nature of reality, while inviting us to explore other ways of understanding life and our places within it. This means, and I think this is really important, this means bringing the somatic, the affective, what's felt, what's, the knowledge that comes direct, body, somatic, shamanic knowing, wise, deep prajna, wise knowing presence of the citta, of the heart, bringing this and the relational hearts and communities wholly to bear on how we are facing the unfolding predicament. As Joanna says, the wave of the future is on the local level. Don't waste your heart and mind trying to pull down what is already destroying itself. Where should we put our time and energy? Or she suggests, come into where you're almost below the radar and reorganize life. We want communities where we live and work and fight for the future. So building communities, building resilience underneath the collapsing dinosaur, all of this we train for. All of this, the Buddha, the core of the Buddha's teaching is the Four Noble Truths. There is this experience of dukkha, and we experience dukkha because we're not in accord with reality. You know, we're still, even the way we perceive time, even the way we perceive self and other, is actually not reality. Reality is much more seamless in its nature. There's no real boundaries. There's nothing that's actually solid. It's dynamic. So the way I see it is that time and space and future are colliding into more and more of an increasingly intense gestalt of the now. It's this nowness isn't so much a marker in time, it's a marker in presence, because everything past and present and future is in now, in the now, the presence of the heart. As we enter this collective breakdown, shamanic journey together, and the shaman doesn't just land up in breakdown, the shaman and the meditator and the awakening process deliberately goes into breakdown, allows themselves to be dismembered for the sake of touching reality, to bring back vision, to bring back resilience, to bring back the knowledge of the core essence of all that is indestructible, and the core brilliance of being able to move from that place, to reshape the vision, to reshape the shapes that we live in, the structures and systems that we live in. So that's the gift of this moment, the real gift, to understand what we thought was separated out from us through this mind's endless demarcations of others and the othering, now all vibrantly appears in this one heaving consciousness made up of billions of tiny sparks of intention, action, and reactivity. And in particular, as we feel the pressure of thousands of years of divorcing ourselves from Mother Nature, and this is, of course, the great patriarchal project, the accelerator religions lifting off out of limitation and embodiment into the stratosphere, wanting to always leave behind, like we see these billionaires going up in their phallic-shaped spacecrafts. This is a you know, so we have to return to Earth. That's not going to solve anything. It's just burning a lot of fuel and is actually not inspiring or impressive. Is it depressing? We have to reconnect with Mother Nature as we pick up the pieces, as we pick up carefully, what pieces are we going to pick up as we walk into another space and sit into a circle together. There is a beloved circle, that we are outside the walls of conformity. We're a storehouse of our untamed dreams. There is a beloved circle, that we are outside the walls of conformity. We're a storehouse of untamed dreams. We'll decolonize our mind. So we're also decolonizing ourselves from this extractive capitalist system, patriarchally driven, divorced from Mother Nature, divorced from the sacred web of life as participatory beings, and instead inducted into an abstractions of belief and views and ideologies, none of which are informed by what reality actually is. And those ideologies are getting more extreme and more crazy and more cultish and more dangerous. So we have to remember who we are, what we are. And there is an alchemical stone there for us to pick up in that process, in this free fall, as we swim deeper into the uncharted flow of consciousness itself, plunging to the core, to a light nucleus that is the same time of this core Jitta heart presence, at the same time is here, there, everywhere, without center or circumference. Wherever we touch, this moment is conscious being presence, unbounded, potentially creative, birthing forth a matrix of light manifesting as matter. So it is here in our meditative moments, which is every moment that we stop and pause and connect with this liminal conscious awareness, speaking heart, beyond the cognitive, beneath or informing the cognitive, but it's not really dwelling so much in the cognitive frames, which are highly conditioned and partial in their view. So the movement from the meditative movement from over-reliance on view and cognition and description and discrimination, all necessary for navigating the world, but that if uninformed by this deeper knowing liminal heart connected with the deeper intelligence of Mother Earth, then this has led us so astray. So we have to return into this intersecting with this timeless presence, with attention and intention, creating intention, clear intention. Because this is the point of, this is a point of quantum shifts, the point of intersecting the formless with attention and intention at the point of emergent manifestation, where we can energize quantum shifts personally and collectively. If we have more samadhi, then there's more power to that, more focus. Because as the Buddha said, mind precedes all things. Not the thinking mind, but mind at its core. The thinking mind is very powerful and it does create all things. It creates a lot of messes these days. They're not very informed by wise reflection or compassion. So to bow this cognitive mind and pay due homage to this awakening, mysterious spark of conscious reality dwelling now, here, within and without and within all. So at this dangerous moment, we can't grasp the kaleidoscope. There's just too many moving parts and they're all overwhelming. But we can steady, we can ground, we can embody our authentic potential. With each breath, we can prayerfully and ceremonially call on all levels of our being, our guides, our ancestral lineages, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the Dhamma protectors, the elemental forces. And with that in place, we can make an intention to renounce our collusion and perpetuate in ways we help perpetuate the colonial patriarchal superiority of our human dominance, rooted in disdain and severance from the life nourishing, deep, really feminine, and I'm not saying that in a gendered way, but formless, prajnaparamita, guan yin, knowing, the one that listens at ease to all that is resident in this soul of presence within the heart of nature, and it's all nature. So we know this is something we can actually explore individually and in groups to write out what are our agreements to the systems that we're in. What are we signing on to that perpetuates systems that are killing our earth and all the species? How are we, and some of them we can't avoid, we get in the car to go to school, but we can really explore them and start with this intentionality to renounce. And then that will lead us to begin to do what we really need to do, what Greta is talking to us, to rise en masse, to bring this voice out, to challenge these systems in small and big ways, individually and together. It's hard to do this alone. This is something where we need to work more in groups, local groups, groups with friends, with Sangha, to create bridges out of our silos, to speak out, to find our voice, our true voice, to be the part of the control of patriarchy and erroneous religious views that have come through that, and particularly often with those of us that have been within culturated as women, is a fear of speaking out. And there are very good reasons why that fear, or from minority spaces, there can be higher prices to pay for speaking out. So to always have to please, or to be perfect, or to prove, or to perform, so these things, to break set, to be more authentic, to speak the truth, speak our truth. So breaking this spell, breaking the trance, we can do this, actually it is like the Wizard of Oz, pulling the levers, but it's a complete spinning of, it's a trance. It's actually, in a way, it's spinning out these narratives that are false and putting a spell on people. People are in spells, they know, they feel, but they can't connect the dot between the terror that's being felt and then going along with this business as usual. So breaking the spell, and taking time to withdraw all our agreements, even if we can't literally yet withdraw from the systems because our life depends on them. That there's a lot that we can start to do, and then together we can actually say this system isn't working. It's an exacting task. To decolonize ourselves, to energetically withdraw from the exhaustion. And one of the symptoms of this extractive, patriarchal, colonizing machinery is that it's exhausting. It's unrooted, it's ungrounded. So that, to break set with this old story. So we're on notice that we humans are not in control in the way that we thought we were. We're on notice. So let's pause and prepare ourselves inwardly. So what will trigger this possible rise, as Rupert was saying, is when COP26 obviously is going to fail. I'm sorry. There's going to be a lot more, as Greta says, blah, 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 blah. Promise this, while at the same time creating new, fossil fuel extractive projects. I'm sure some good things will come, to be completely cynical, but the leaders will not be coming to the rescue that we have to be the leaders. It's a big thing to also decolonize the mind of how for millennia and for hundreds of years, through class, through race, through gender, through sexual orientation, through all these ways that we have been led to feel voiceless, inferior, controlled by fear, to actually break that spell, that old story, and by feeling this our worth, feeling this connection with this deeper, timeless life, this intelligence of life that's been given, that we're part of. It can break set by the endless workhorse thing, dancing, singing, playing music, writing poetry, deeply breathing, meditating, not just making meditation another kind of colonizing project where we just oppress ourselves, but just really the feeling the breath, opening, contemplating, inquiring what's happening here, looking at the ways that we're controlled through the mechanisms of fear and shame and guilt and lack of worth and violence towards self and others. So there is another way. And this other way, the Buddha's on the night before his enlightenment, the Buddha, just before his enlightenment, after he had tried all the paths, pleasure, path of pain, both failed him. We've done that. There's civilizations, we've done that. We've gone down all these paths, and the Buddha said, might there be another way? That was the question. There has to be another, there is another way. There is another way. And we know, we feel it, it's emergent, there's a lot of momentum. 2/3 of the world feel it. Each breath, with each breath, breathing us back to this deathless present moment, grounding, soothing, connecting, enabling our authentic truth-telling, rewired brain, freeing us from allegiance to an old dying world, free to dream our new story of collaborative stewardship as we return to the root, reach to the stars and walk the songs of whales, eagles, hummingbirds, and our indigenous ancestors. Small and big steps within our gathering community of renewal mean we no longer serve the empire-making machine, but instead we serve Earth and each other and all beings, the elk, the creatures in the soil, the birds flying. So this is a devotion. This is devotion connected with response, with action. You know, a transformative path, a transformative process. As we network more as groups, building resilience together, supporting each other, locally and around the globe, as we move out of our silos, as we unfreeze the immobilized and distracted parts of ourselves, in ourselves and each other. And we shatter the spells, these occultish spells perpetuated by craven media barons, derelict politicians, deadly corporate interests, heartless, soulless. But we can only do this if we rise together. So it's time. This is the moment. We're here. For us to join this heavy lifting together, to break set and unleash a chorus of beautiful, authentic, true voices. As Rupert Reed, who seems to be present with us, and Joanna mentions too, if our children can go on climate strike every week, why can't the rest of us? We dream for each other. We speak for each other. This spell of individuality. Of course, we're all beautifully unique, but that spell of individuality is killing us too. So it's time. This is the moment. I actually feel extremely daunted, like you do. I wake up often feeling panicked, overwhelmed, and I lay down and breathe deeply to start the day. Feel the breath, feel the connection. I feel the ground, that open into liminal space. I start to hear that deeper guidance beneath the what's to do now, and the feeling of being driven on by what's to do next. There is a lot to do. We're creating the new story. That's a lot of work too, but it can be joyful work. It can be work that we're supporting each other in, that brings energy to us. So to maintain well-being, to do what we can, deep breaths, practices, starting again and again, forgiving, letting go as a daily discipline, inquiring, noticing, really seeing what's going on. Wow. Being up to speed, looking at systems, educating ourselves, being politically engaged. This is a duty. Because if we don't, we just let corporate interests control the whole planet. And it's really important that we engage, are informed, get behind what at least will help further a survivable and sustainable agenda. So this is the moment. This is the moment we were born for. This is the moment we came here for. Whatever the outcome, let us take heart, let us take joy that we're here together. It's a great mystery that we're in, a great challenge, and yet at the heart of that challenge, a great potential to be realized, a great love to be lived. Thank you, everyone. All blessings.